Welcome in, everybody, to the Flagship podcast. I am Chip Brown of Horns 24/7, joined as always by our fearless leader, the managing editor of Horns 24/7, Taylor Estes. Taylor, how's it going?
Chip, it's going well. We're recording on Tuesday, and it feels like it's already Saturday because this week's been a little wild around these parts. How are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, wild. Like, it was a wild weekend of stuff, and it's just like continued, obviously, with a ton of emphasis on the Quinn Ewers recruitment, the former Texas commit who declassified from the class of 2022 to the class of 21 so he could start getting NIL money at Ohio State, which he did. But he only played 2 snaps there, both handoffs. And now he's in the portal, and I'm not breaking any news there. But it's like Texas fans have lost their minds over Quinn Ewers, and I'm like, what about Arch Manning? But we'll get back to that, Taylor, and make sure you're listening to our other podcasts here on the Horns 24/7 podcast network and on the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel, because Mike Roach, Nick Harris, all of us are, to a degree, covering the Quinn Ewers recruitment. And it's bonkers because Texas Tech is in the mix, TCU's in the mix, NIL money's in the mix. And Taylor, this is the part of the new age recruiting, because in the past week, Texas alumni have put together 2 different NIL initiatives, the Clark Field Collective and then the Horns with Heart pancake
Factory or whatever.
factory,
Yeah.
in promising $50,000 to every scholarship offensive lineman annually, a total of like $800,000 annually that will be going to scholarship offensive linemen. And look, I've said this on this podcast, it's uncharted territory. Go for it until
Right.
someone tells you stop, because nothing's going to be reined in by the NCAA. They don't want to get sued for antitrust, so they're not going to say you can and can't do that. The only thing they're going to say is schools cannot be directly involved
Right.
in lining up money for kids. So it's crazy.
It is. It is. It's the wild, wild west for sure. And Texas is, taking advantage of the NCAA basically having a hands-off approach with the name, image, likeness, earning power that student athletes are able to get. I mean, this is genius, though. The or Heart with Horns or Horns with Heart organization. It's paying them $50,000 for these student athletes, the offensive linemen, excuse me, to be involved in various charitable aspects. So it's actually a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And if that's the case, the donors that are putting money into this, it's a tax write-off for them. And so this is essentially what you're seeing right now with the name, image, likeness that Texas is kind of, or Texas alum and donors are kind of putting together, is the today's version of essentially paying for recruits. And you can go to offensive linemen and say, hey, look, every single scholarship offensive lineman on that come to Texas automatically get $50,000 so long as you're eligible to play. And that's a game changer, because I mean, there's been no question, about the fact that there's a lot of schools that have come into the state of Texas, especially, and poached a lot of the top offensive linemen. And there's a lot of, SEC schools that have, and, the whole kind of joke behind the scenes thing always with SEC schools is how much are they paying them to get them to go to their school, and that's something now, Texas legally, without violating any NCAA policy right now, has the opportunity to really use this in their advantage, especially at the offensive line, which is clearly a position that has been less than standard for Texas for over a decade now, Chip. And I think that this is a way that some of the donors that are involved with this, I mean, how many times has Steve Sarkisian talked about the need for more offensive linemen, the need for elite offensive linemen? Now, all of a sudden, this $50,000 per scholarship offensive lineman NIL deal goes down, as early signing period is coming up, as National Signing Day in February is still on the horizon. I mean, it seems like dominoes are kind of falling into place at an ideal timing, and maybe that was planned. Maybe, I don't know, but no doubt about it, Texas is taking advantage of the NCAA not regulating this, as they should. I mean, when you have a donor base with the money that Texas has, the long running thing, the national headlines around Texas is donors are too involved in the football program. Okay, instead of writing a check to buy out coach contracts, write a check and bring recruits into the University of Texas, and do so without having any NCAA violations. It's a smart move, and I would imagine this is only the beginning of it, Chip.
Yeah, yeah, and the timing, as you mentioned, is like amazing because Mario Cristobal is leaving Oregon to go to Miami, and there are two Texas offensive tackles who were committed to Oregon, who Texas is very, very interested in. Kelvin Banks, the 5-star, obviously is one of them, and Cam Williams from Duncanville is another one. Not to mention, Ernest Green and the other offensive line targets. But yeah, good timing by Horns with Heart to announce their 501c3 initiative, as you mentioned. That's not an easy distinction to get, by the way. And you have to really lay it out there to be able to get that distinction. And because obviously, as you said, it creates gift opportunities, charitable contributions that are tax write-offs. So they don't just hand those out to anybody, but obviously 6 influential, well-heeled Texas boosters, successful in business, have gotten this venture going and up and running just in time for the 2022 December 15th signing period. So we will certainly keep you posted on that. And then, obviously there was news over the weekend from, DeMarvion Overshawn and Deshaun Jameson announcing their return. And then on Monday, Keandre Coburn, which I thought we all assumed he was coming back, but he announced he was coming back. I would say to Keandre, hey, Snacks, we gotta get those numbers up, because if you
Yes.
look at his production's actually gone down each year that he's been
Right.
at Texas. And, he was part of that ballyhoo 2018 class. Anyway, I'm not trying to pick on Snacks, but
No,
um,
no, he's a good. I mean, little nugget here. Chip and I were talking about this after he announced it on Monday, I think it was, and I sent Chip a text separately. I was like, I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but where would he be going? Like, just because. I mean, it's a smart move for him to come back. It's not, a knock on. I'm not trying to, make fun of him or anything, but that was a legitimate question. I was kind of like, oh, this needs an announcement. I thought this was just, something that we all assumed. But yeah, you're right. I mean, he definitely needs to come back a little bit.
well, and the guy who, it's interesting, the guy who I'm waiting to hear definitively that he's not coming back is Cameron Dicker, because Dicker has sort of indicated to some people close to him that he's thinking about coming back. Well, he walked on senior day. He
Mhm.
was also at the senior banquet over the weekend, indicating he's moving on. And yet he's within striking distance of Texas's all-time scoring record, which is held by Ricky Williams. And there's, there's been, like, I still talk to people close to the Dicker family who feel like, oh, he's still thinking about coming back. But his actions are telling us he's not coming back. So I need to reach out to my man, you know, Cameron Dicker, and see what's going on there. But
Yeah, well,
um,
and one thing though, Chip, just sorry to cut you off there, but Steve Sarkisian did say after the final regular season game that he did encourage some of the players that were on the fence to partake in senior day festivities, just to be safe. Like DeMarvion Overshawn, he did. Deshaun Jameson, they both did, even though they're coming back. So, but they've already announced their return. Cameron Dicker has not, so that's still kind of TBD.
yeah, and Anthony Cook also, I it looks like he's going to return. Everything we've heard is he's going to return. The nickel starter for the Longhorns played well this season. Really a good story after starting off as a cornerback, getting moved to nickel, getting in the transfer portal, getting out of the transfer portal, and then excelling at that nickel position, and might be a guy who actually could play himself into a professional career with a good season next year. So Anthony Cook, another guy we're hearing should be back. So and a lot of guys going into the portal, Taylor,
Hmm.
um, from you know Delia Dayaway and Marcus Tillman to Alvanti Woodard to Marcus Caldwell, the safety, and Rafidi Girmay, the fourth year offensive lineman, all into the portal. And I don't think that's the end of it either for Texas. Remember, Steve Sarkisian was doing one-on-one player evaluations last week and giving players an honest assessment of whether, what he sees for their future at Texas, and some players obviously taking that information and heading to the transfer portal. So we know if Steve Sarkisian wants to bring in up to 33 new players in the 2022 signing class, or before next season, let's just put it that way, they are going to have to clear some scholarships. So there you have it. It was a crazy weekend, and Texas picked up a commitment from Kobe Mckenzie, the former OU commitment at linebacker, 6'2", 245, really solid middle linebacker type, who I'm told the UT coaches just love his football IQ, outstanding leader type, who Texas desperately needs at every position. And so even though he's a bigger guy, more of a SEC type linebacker, maybe not quite the sideline to sideline, the guy is a guy who can get off blocks, make tackles, and could be an impact guy in his first year. So big commitment pickup as part of this coaching carousel um, this offseason.
Yeah, and it's never a bad thing for, you to be able to, pick some guys from your biggest rival, especially in conference rival, and take advantage of Oklahoma's, kind of fluctuating situation. Obviously, they have since hired Brent Venables as the head coach, but still, Venables has an uphill battle there to kind of make sure to secure a lot of I think the class that Oklahoma had already put together. And it's not going to be an easy one, but this is a huge one for Texas, Chip. I mean, according to 24/7 Sports Composite, he's the number 21 overall player in the state of Texas, number 13th ranked linebacker in the 2022 class, and is nationally ranked 131 in the country in the 2022 class. So this is a big get at definitely a position of need, especially of need of depth for Texas at linebacker.
Yeah, and he's a Lubbock kid, a
Mhm.
Texas kid, just like those two Oregon offensive line commits, Calvin Banks, um, Cam Williams. Texas has got to do a better job of keeping those studs in state. We'll see how this class ends up. It's exciting. It's wild. It's crazy. It's no better time to be at Horns 24/7. That's for sure. And
Right.
we got a special going on, Taylor.
We do. We have a 50% off annual membership special. This is actually valid for new members and current and monthly members who upgrade to annual. If you are a monthly member, when you upgrade to annual, you are able to read all message boards, everything across the 24/7 sports network, plus the VIP content as well. It's definitely worth the upgrade, especially when you get it 50% off the price. It ends up only being $448 per month as opposed to $995 per month. So you want to get on board, because even Chip, the other thing too, even with, obviously early signing period we're recording on Tuesday. By the time that we drop this, it'll be 1 week from the time that we drop this on Wednesday of next week. So there's a lot of stuff going on there, but it's not going to end there either for Texas. I think that there's still going to be some I think the Longhorns will probably, go look more at the transfer portal after the early signing period and after the bowl season as well, because I would imagine that some more players, could be options for Texas will enter the transfer portal leading up to there. So even if, whatever Texas does early signing day, doesn't mean it's over. They still have until the first Wednesday of February to really secure this class. So you definitely want to make sure that you're tuning into Horns 24/7 right now.
That's right. That's where insiders go to eat, Horns 24/7. And we should mention that, I mean, you've got two nationally ranked basketball teams and the number 2 volleyball team all that were in action over the weekend. Volleyball moved on to the round of 16. They will take on Washington, number 15 Washington, on Thursday at Gregory Gym. They're trying to get back to the national championship game where they lost last year to Kentucky. And the only team ahead of them is undefeated Louisville. And I would love to see that matchup in the championship. But then you had the Texas women's basketball team going to A&M and just taking care of business, 76-60. They turned over A&M 22 times, turned that into 37 points. And this was Vic Schaefer going back to his alma mater and giving it to his old boss, Gary Blair, in a great win. After, Vic Schaefer basically challenged them and said, "Are we that monster that went to Stanford and won?" He said, I think we are. And they proved to be in College Station against the Aggies. Great win for Vic Schaefer's program. They're going to play 1-6 Idaho this weekend. That should be no problem. But Chris Beard's team, who destroyed UT Rio Grande Valley this weekend, will take on, or no, Thursday, for crying out loud. Can't get that wrong. They're going to Seton Hall, number 23 Seton Hall, who went to number 4 Michigan and won, and have one of the biggest teams in the country, 2 6'10" players and a 7'2" center. This will be a really good challenge for Chris Beard's team on Thursday, and that is going on right. Well, what? See, the Texas Seton Hall basketball game's at 5:30. The women's volleyball game's at 6:30. Thursday, make your appointment to listen in, and so Taylor, obviously all the talk about recruiting right now, football recruiting is king, queen, prince, princess. It's the whole deal. And Quinn Ewers, I mean, we talked about it. He's being courted by Texas Tech. They have boosters too who are
Yeah.
interested in putting together an NIL package for Quinn Ewers. And that's the thing that is a little probably disconcerting, is that we've heard more about Quinn Ewers and NIL money than we have about Quinn Ewers on a football field. I mean, the
Right.
last time we saw Quinn Ewers playing football was for South Lake Carroll, and he was getting outplayed by Cade Klubnik of Westlake, as Westlake beat South Lake Carroll for the state championship last year. So it's, look, Quinn Ewers, you're not the number 1 quarterback in the country in a recruiting class unless you've got the goods, and he's got great arm talent. Steve Sarkisian, this is why he gets paid the big bucks. He's got to decide, is going all in on Quinn Ewers worth maybe losing Arch Manning in the 2023 class? There are other portal quarterbacks that Steve Sarkisian can recruit too as well.
Yeah, and if you go back and listen to our interview episode of the Flagship podcast with Mike Roach on Monday, he kind of talked a little bit about how Steve Sarkisian and the staff kind of approaches these recruitments. Obviously, it sounds from everything that Mike and Nick are hearing, what we're hearing too, that no, without a doubt, Texas wants to get Quinn Ewers if they're if they can. But the one thing that Mike mentioned, I thought this was interesting, Chip, was Steve Sarkisian's kind of like, if they don't, it's not the end of the world. And so it sounds to me like Sark has at least a backup plan if Quinn Ewers doesn't, pan out. But that is a really interesting aspect that people aren't talking about right now is Arch Manning. Arch Manning obviously has the bloodlines of NFL greatness, not just NFL players, NFL greatness, in his family there. And so, his upside is massive too. And, it's kind of which one do you take? Because if you get Quinn Ewers, you're probably not going to get Arch Manning, and you're going to hope at this point that Quinn Ewers does pan out. He didn't play his senior year of high school because he reclassified. Remember, he was supposed to be in the 2022 signing class, and because the state of Texas is one of the few states that does not allow high school athletes to earn NIL money on their name, image, and likeness. And so that caused him to reclassify to the 2021 recruiting class. He signed with Ohio State and then enrolled there like in August, I think it was this past August here. So he didn't even play his senior year of high school. So we're talking about a guy right now who played up into his junior season, as you mentioned. The last time you saw him was in a loss in the state championship game. But this is it's kind of an interesting approach that Texas kind of has to take right now. And when I heard Mike say that about Steve Sarkisian not really being like, oh, it's all in or nothing, or something like that for Quinn Ewers, you can't forget that Texas has been in a very solid place in recruiting Arch Manning in the 2023 class. So that's something definitely to watch, as we move forward here, and as this whole Quinn Ewers situation unfolds. But this is why, as you mentioned, Steve Sarkisian gets paid the big bucks to make these decisions. And he's done a really good job at quarterback recruiting and quarterback development at every place that he has been. So, I think we can't really question him. His track record has shown that you probably need to give him the benefit of the doubt when it comes to recruiting and developing that position.
Yeah, and Arch Manning has been to Austin. He likes it. That's legit. I mean, he's obviously got all kinds of suitors, but he likes Texas, and Texas has been a legitimate school of consideration for Arch Manning. So this is, you like to say first world problems, right? You're recruiting 5-star quarterbacks, and if you get one, you should be ecstatic. And so it's fascinating because up until Quinn Ewers went into the portal, all we heard about was Arch Manning, Arch Manning, Arch Manning.
Right.
And now it's Quinn Ewers, Quinn Ewers, Quinn Ewers. And so, it's going to be fascinating to watch. I know I wake up every morning and go right to Horns 24/7 to see what my man Mike Roach and Nick Harris have. And then I'm on the phone, and it is interesting because, I do think, the people I talk to, there was a confidence level from the Texas coaching staff about being able to land Quinn Ewers. Now, I don't know how that's changed with these recruiting visits of Quinn Ewers to Texas Tech and TCU, and there were rumblings that A&M was trying to throw something at him. So it's definitely new age recruiting, and with NIL deals that can be put in front of kids, it is free agency. It's basically NFL free agents, the equivalent of it for college football. So there's a lot more than just, do you like the campus? Did you like the coaches? Did you like the players who hosted you? Did you have fun? It's now also, well, how much money are we talking?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I mean, there is a part of it that's like it should be that way a little bit. I mean, think about the amount of money that the product that these student athletes put on, for the fans and put on the field, how much money that brings into the university. I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars we're talking about. So,
and then
they're
Mel
obvious.
Tucker at Michigan State is getting $95 million over 10 years.
Yeah. So I mean,
So,
it's the players just as much as coaches. Obviously, coaches work their butt off too. I don't think that especially college coaches. I don't think that the average fan really knows their hours. I mean, there's a reason why a lot of college coaches would jump at the opportunity to take an NFL job, even if they had to take a pay cut, because recruiting is nonstop. It never ends. Once Texas signs their 2022 class, it's not like, oh, now it's on to 2023. It's no, we got to hammer home 2023, and now we got to start looking more at 2024. I mean, it's a never ending job, and so that's why college coaches get paid so much money nowadays too. But without the good product or good players, they wouldn't probably have the means to do that. So it's an interesting, unique time, no doubt about it. And it's almost like we're almost watching what happens behind the scenes a little bit when coaches and their agents are working with multiple schools trying to get a coaching contract or a head coach job or something like that. The things that we hear behind the scene when those situations have happened, which has been more often than not at Texas in the last several years, is now going to the players. And this is something. And now, Chip, one thing we have to say: obviously, this is not going to be the case for every single recruit moving forward. Quinn Ewers is in a special situation there, and I'm not saying that other recruits won't be as have a higher earning potential, or as high of an earning potential for Quinn Ewers. But when you are the highest rated quarterback recruit since Vince Young in the modern day recruiting era, you're gonna come with a hefty price tag, and he's in a probably the maybe 5% of college football players or recruits that are able to really capitalize in a substantial way. And it may even be less than that 5%. It may be 1%. He may be in the 1% right now of guys that really could get this type of earning. And, as it's been reported previously, he made over $1 million at Ohio State, and he played, what'd you say, 2 snaps?
2 snaps, 2 handoffs.
Yep. So over $1 million. $500,000, more than 500,000 per handoff. That's all you got to know.
Not bad. And if he plays his cards right, he might be able to. Well, I won't be cynical. All right, Taylor. Before we get to love it or leave it, I gotta say the Big 12 championship game between
Oh my
Baylor and
goodness.
Oklahoma State. I said last week, if Mike Gundy doesn't win the Big 12 championship this year, when will he ever win it? And the way that thing played out, where Jalen Warren, his stud running back, gets hurt, and Warren's trying to get back in the game, but the trainers are like, dude, your knee is toast. It, I mean, if you're an Oklahoma State fan, you are, T Boone Pickens right now is up in heaven, kicking over Pistol Pete, because that was the craziest ending for, what, first and goal
hmm
from the 2-1,
Yep.
couldn't get in, and stopped, just like the Tennessee Titans against the Rams in the Super Bowl in 1999, where they come up 1 yard short. Unbelievable. And an unbelievable job by Dave Aranda and Baylor to go from 2-7 last year to Big 12 champs. That was something. I have a friend who bet a parlay on the Atlanta Braves winning the World Series. This was way back in September.
Uh-huh.
On the Braves winning the World Series and Baylor winning the Big 12 championship, and he won $105,000.
Oh, how much did he put, or how much did he have
He
to
bet
pay in?
$1,500.
Oh my gosh.
So just ridiculous.
I'm
But
a betting novice, so I don't know what parlay really is. I'm going to be real honest here. I don't know what betting stuff is. So what is that?
yeah, I mean, it's, you go to Vegas and you can get these random, things that you think are going to happen, and then get even bigger odds if you package them together, so that both
I
things
gotcha.
have to happen for you to get paid.
I gotcha.
And so, I mean, that's just, it's crazy, because we all laughed at him saying, "Oh, really? Baylor in September?"
Yeah.
And then it happened. So,
Like you may as well set that $1,500 on fire or
oh
something.
my
But
gosh, exactly.
that's
And
crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
now he's got 105,000 reasons to laugh at us.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. No, that game was nuts though, Chip. I mean, Spencer Sanders, God bless him. That was so bad. I mean, Spencer Sanders, I feel like, has been one of those players where when he's on, he is really, really good. When he is off, it's like just cover your eyes because it's bad. And this was horrible. I mean, what he threw, I think a Big 12 title game record, 4 interceptions in that game. And just the fact that Oklahoma State still was in it. I mean, there was that fourth what was that, 4th down call that Dave Aranda had Baylor go for it, that set up, and they were up by, I think, double digits at that point, and then that set up Baylor, or excuse me, Oklahoma State's touchdown to make it that 6. I think it was, what was the score? I can't remember that. Like, there was a lot of things that happened that could have really been a huge determining factor in the outcome of the game, one way or the other. That 4th down, go for it on 4th down, in your own territory.
Right.
That was one that could have really
Missed
backfired big
field goals
time.
by Baylor.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of things, but man, that game, it was something to watch there. And great stand by the Baylor defense in the red zone. I mean, my goodness, like they stuffed that. That wasn't just the first time that they had stuffed Oklahoma State in that game, when they had, 4 downs to try to punch it in from inside the 10-yard line, and they didn't do it. That was huge, but huge for Dave Aranda. I mean, it's unbelievable to see what he did, just making that offensive coordinator hire change. Really, I mean, him hiring Larry Fedora in the first place was a terrible move. I mean, when that happened, we were kind of like, when was the last time Larry Fedora called an offense? I mean, my goodness. And you're a defensive minded head coach. You need somebody that knows how to call the offense. He went out and got Jeff Grimes and clearly paid off in a huge way, Chip. I mean, what a story. I mean,
Yeah.
seriously, what a story.
Yeah. And as for Brent Venables at OU, I'm watching to see if Caleb Williams, the quarterback, stays. I mean, to me, that's going to determine if Brent Venables is reloading or rebuilding, because obviously Malachi Nelson, the 5-star quarterback from the LA area, has decommitted from OU. Will follow Lincoln Riley. He's in the 2023 class. He'll follow Lincoln Riley to USC, but Caleb Williams, who as a freshman was, he made some freshman mistakes, obviously, but also made some unbelievable plays and had OU in that game against Oklahoma State, um, with a chance to get into the Big 12 title game. And so if Caleb Williams stays at OU, Brent Venables has a significantly better first year than if Caleb Williams decides to leave. So
Yeah.
with
One of Caleb Williams' plays that was crucial ended up leading to them not losing to Kansas, too.
right,
Remember that
right, when
when
he
he
ripped the ball
took
out
the
of Kennedy
handoff
Brooks'
back?
hands.
Yeah, a play that I don't think either one of us thought was even allowed. When that happened, I was like, "Is this what?"
Yeah, the officials said because it happened behind the line, it was considered a handoff and
Right.
it was legal. But yeah, it was like, huh?
Yeah.
Did that really just happen? Another player
Right.
just ripped the ball out of another player's hands and ran forward for the first down. Yeah, OU was up 5 at that point, midfield, going for it on 4th down. If Kansas stops them there, they had like 3 minutes left to drive and take the lead, but Caleb Williams got it done. All right, Taylor, we ready for some love it or leave it?
Yes, sir. Before we get to love it or leave it, we're going to take a quick break, but stick around because more football talk, including talk about Quinn Ewers, will continue in love it or leave it. So stay tuned. We will be right back. And if you're watching us on the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel, we will continue rolling on here to love it or leave it. As we mentioned earlier in the show, we are currently running a 50% off annual membership special. This is valid for new members and for current monthly members who upgrade to annual. Definitely take advantage of this deal. It's going to be running for a few days here, but it will be ending soon. But there's going to be so much more developments coming even after the early signing period window closes. Early signing day starts next Wednesday, so a week from Wednesday. So you definitely want to keep up on all of the latest recruiting scoop. And with Texas basketball season really ramping up here, it's a great time to be over at Horns 24/7. So, with that said, Chip, you ready for some love it or leave it?
Let's go.
Alrighty, my first one for you is love it or leave it. You would rather have Quinn Ewers over Arch Manning.
You know, I just I'm going to leave this because the whole, reclassification um just kind of sent, like, gave me the heebie-jeebies. Um, and obviously South Lake Carroll, his high school team. And look, if it's game changing money, if it's life changing money, go for it. Um, but if you're betting on yourself, then enjoy yourself. I mean, South Lake Carroll just beat Allen. They're in the state semifinals. Um, I don't know. I maybe I'm old school, but I know Quinn Ewers' dad is real involved with everything that Quinn Ewers does, and those dads make me nervous. The thing about Arch Manning, and look, there's no guarantee Texas gets Arch Manning, but if they improve their offensive line and Arch Manning isn't, a tackling dummy, um, then he comes from a family that's always going to be under the radar, not over the radar, but yet a great family. Obviously, the quarterback lineage in the Manning family is second to none. So it's it just feels like a little, I don't know. I I would probably, again, no guarantees, but I would rather have Arch Manning. I
Okay.
think you can bring in a portal quarterback to help compete with Casey Thompson and Hudson Card and serve as a bridge to Arch Manning. Now, there's nothing guaranteed, so I guess it's bird in the hand versus the two in the bush. But Taylor, what do you think?
This is tough because I mean, I understand where you're coming from when it comes to the, um, the family side of it. And Arch Manning has, if you listen and over at the State of Recruiting podcast on our YouTube channel or on our Horns 24/7 podcast network, the guys have talked about this before with Arch Manning. He's not really the look at me type of guy. He's not, he doesn't necessarily want to be the shining star that
The
everybody
savior,
is.
right?
Yeah,
He doesn't.
yeah, he just is not the guy that's going to be like, I want my face on everything, or I want, like, he's just more of a um I don't know what the word, because I don't want it to come off like a negative or
Low
anything on
key.
Quinn Ewers. Yeah, he's low key, very very much so, just a kind of low key guy. Go with whatever type of situation. So it's a little bit different with that, but I mean, you can't go wrong with either. I think that if you with Arch Manning, let's say Texas doesn't have a great season next year. What's the headlines going to be about Steve Sarkisian's future? They're going to be probably pretty negative, right? Or questioning at least. And that would hurt potentially Arch Manning going to Texas. So I feel like you have to go with Quinn Ewers at this point if you are in the position to, because Texas, Steve Sarkisian really needs to win soon. I mean, he has the Longhorns are going to be at the Sofa Bowl this year, watching it all from home, and so having to go through that, I think that you have to get Quinn Ewers if you can. And, if you can't, you better hope that you find somebody in the portal and win next year so that you still have a legitimate shot at Arch Manning. So I'm so torn on this because I think you can't go wrong with either one of them. But I think with the situation that Texas is currently in, with needing to really turn things around, especially with Steve Sarkisian coming in as the quarterback guru, the one of the best offensive play callers in football. There's a lot of hype for him and for this offense, and if he doesn't feel that he has the quarterback on this roster, which I think it's the fact that they're going after a Quinn Ewers may seem that way, whether it's right or wrong. I think you almost would have to rather have Quinn Ewers and just hope it works out next year rather than hoping you land another transfer portal quarterback, or you hope the development of Casey Thompson or Hudson Card really ramps up. And I think there's just too many ifs and hopes in that situation to, for the position that Texas is in right now. I think that there's too many question marks with that moving forward. So yeah, I'm going to have to love it, I think. And I would say I wouldn't rather have. I think that you have to pick Quinn Ewers if he's available right now. And if he's not, you hope that you find the transfer portal guy, or that Casey Thompson or Hudson Card develops, and then they can sell it to Arch Manning next year. But I don't think that Steve Sarkisian can really afford to not go all hands on deck with this one personally.
All right. Love it or leave it. Number 2.
All right, my second one is love it or leave it. Unless Texas fortifies the offensive line, it won't matter if Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning, or Tom Brady is the Longhorns' next quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, this is legit. And, I'm sure Hudson Card and Casey Thompson are like, hey, if we get this offensive line fixed, everything will be a lot better. But
Right.
there's no doubt. I mean, right now, and we've written about this, I wrote about it in the Insider last week with Rafidi Girmay. I've reported, Girmay's in the portal. Tyler Johnson, wasn't even with the team the last month. And he's not in the future. Now Isaiah Hookfin has been in a horrible motorcycle accident, lacerated his spleen, and broken ribs, the works. And if they don't bring in a bunch of offensive linemen in January, they would have only 11 scholarship offensive linemen for spring ball. Now, Steve Sarkisian runs the first team offense on one end of the practice field and the second team offense on the other end of the practice field, and that would leave you one substitute. It's amazing how the numbers got out of whack on the offensive line recruiting, and it they haven't the hits. I mean, they only brought in Hayden Connor and Max Merrill last year, and Hayden Connor looks like a guy that the coaches feel can develop. He's teammates say he's got the nasty. He's certainly big enough, but they've got to get guys like Andre Carrick, Hayden Connor, Isaiah Hookfin developed because you're losing Tope Amade and Denzel Okafor and Derek Kerstetter, and you've got to have some developed offensive linemen. You can't put it all on recruits, so they are going to have to hit the portal. They're going to have to nail it in the portal. I'm going to love this, Taylor. How about you?
Yeah, I'm absolutely going to love it because I think that just watching, and obviously it's a different position, but look at Bijan Robinson really made that offensive line a lot of times look better than it was. But even he couldn't, like, there were games where he was shut down some. And, that's one of the most elite running backs in college football, if not one of the most elite players in college football. And if he's able to be shut down, then imagine what the quarterback, if you're, there's only so much they can do. I mean, Steve Sarkisian's he's not the type that's going to have a running quarterback. He doesn't like that. He's very open about that he says it opens them up for way too much risk. And that's the most important position in all of sports, he's said before. And, running your quarterback, they already get hit enough or have a threat of getting hit enough. That only, intensifies the potential of them getting injured. And, as we're talking about this, there's only a handful of quarterbacks that are going to be on the roster, So, I think that you absolutely are going to have to find offensive linemen first and foremost. That's the most important thing. Because I mean, let's be honest, Chip. Casey Thompson, he played very well in games this season. And I know he was, he played through a thumb injury, and obviously that impacted some of his performances, but he's shown up in games and shown up big in games too. And so if, they have options there regardless. So I think that the priority needs to be on offensive line first. Obviously, adding a quarterback from the transfer portal or whatever is a big priority for Steve Sarkisian. But number one should be offensive lineman. Only signing 2 in 2021, yeah, that was bad, but this has been going back longer than then. So this is a without a doubt priority number one in my opinion. And if I'm Texas, I'm adding as many as possible, even if I have to not add some skill players or something that you might want to, also add to the roster, offensive line has to be number one. So yeah, I'm going to agree, and I'm going to have to love it and say, doesn't matter who you have at quarterback, you got to get that offensive line right.
Yeah. All right. Love it or leave it. Number 3.
All right, number 3 is that, yeah. All right, my final one for you is love it or leave it. The Texas sports calendar on Thursday requires 2 televisions, one for men's basketball, which tips off at 5:30 on Fox Sports 1, and one for women's volleyball that takes on or is at 6:30, excuse me, on Longhorn Network.
Yeah, I'm gonna love this. I mean, I'm really fascinated by this Texas Seton Hall game. It's on the road. It's a true road game. Texas has played obviously at Gonzaga, the number one team. Well, not anymore. Now Purdue's the number one team, but at the time, Gonzaga was the number one team. And so, those true road games are a real challenge. And Seton Hall is a real challenge. They went to Michigan and won when Michigan was number 4. And they've got a lot of size and they've got a lot of experience. They got a 12-year coach. So this is a good challenge for this Texas basketball team, which is still trying to figure things out. They don't have Dylan Dizu back yet. The Vanderbilt you know, big man who led the SEC in rebounding, still, coming back from offseason knee surgery. I think his arrival will certainly help fortify Texas down low, especially on the defensive end. But they turned over Rio Grande Valley 22 times, and that was huge because Rio Grande Valley had gone to Illinois and played them tough, and Texas blew them out because defensively they were suffocating, and that's how Chris Beard is going to overcome any lack of size by just putting so much pressure on the perimeter. So, and then Texas volleyball, what can you say? I mean, you'd start to take for granted that they're going to go to the Final Four. That's unbelievable. That's a credit to Jarrett Elliott. And this volleyball team has so much offensive firepower. Now they do make errors. They have, for my liking, too many service errors, and sometimes you get some attack errors and even some setting errors from, at times you're like, huh? That shouldn't have been like that. But they have so much offensive firepower that they overcome it. And now the round is 16, the Elite 8, the Final Four. That's where we're going to find out if Texas can just overpower this field. So, yeah, I'm going to love this. How about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna love it. I mean, I feel like especially after this football season, if you're a Texas fan, I think a lot of the people that tune into the Flagship and our other network of podcasts, it's mainly, predominantly for the football conversation. But the fact that Texas has other, athletic programs, especially men's basketball too, that are playing well. I mean, if you're a Texas football fan, it might help you to start watching some teams that are doing well. And men's basketball, obviously, there's a lot of hype for year one of Chris Beard, and they've played some solid games already thus far. And then with Texas women's volleyball, I mean, Jarrett Elliott always has these ladies, ready to go. And in the postseason, it seems like every single year, even when I was in college, I swear this has been just so consistent. So, yeah, I think that if you're a Texas fan in general, watching the teams that are, performing up to par or, exceeding expectations, you should enjoy those because you didn't get that this football season. So maybe it'll take some of the anger or emotion away from what has happened the last, since September 1st, and see that there's other programs that are succeeding. So yeah, I'm going to love it too.
All right. And I've got one love it or leave it for you.
Okay.
In honor of our man, Kenneth Sims, the former Texas defensive lineman, um, who went number 1 overall in the NFL draft in the 1982 NFL draft to the New England Patriots, and who is being inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame like tonight as we record on Tuesday in Las Vegas. We call him Big Slimmy. But Kenneth Sims you've met him, and he has the biggest hands you've ever seen on a human being. Love it or leave it.
Uh, love it. Now I feel like we need to explain how I would know to love this question just before, people go like, what's that about? So a number of years ago, it's funny you bring this up, Chip. Number of years ago, I was at Cover 3 here in Austin with Chip Brown and the late Sean Adams. And we were just hanging out at the bar there, and Kenneth Sims came up, and, he comes up and starts talking to Chip and Sean. At that time, I'd never met him or anything like that. And he kept talking, and he was very expressive when he was talking. And I kept just staring at his hands because I was like, oh my gosh, like these are absurdly large hands. And I have very, very small hands. Like my ring finger is a 4.5, which is, I know it sounds crazy, but like that's legitimate. I have very, very tiny hands. Sean Adams used to call me little boy hands, not little girl hands, because he said my nails were never manicured. So he called me little boy hands. And I just said something. I was like, I think Kenneth went to the bathroom, or so. I can't remember exactly how it played out, but I said something when he was away from the table, like, oh my gosh, have you seen how big his hands are? So he comes back, and Sean goes, hey, little boy hands, let's compare your hands to Kenneth. So I put my hand up, and Chip, you saw it. I think I may have a picture somewhere if I searched hard enough. These things were about 3 times the size of my hand, if not more. I mean,
Like,
my
your
fingers did.
fingers didn't even hit where his fingers begin.
Yeah, like, imagine, like, this is his palm. My fingers probably came, like, I don't know if you can see, like, I'm kind of there. They probably came to, like, maybe here on his palm. And I was just like, so he could have, like, held my hand could have been fully flexed, and he could have crushed over my hand, and I could have kept it flexed probably, because
Yeah,
that's how large they are.
Kenneth, who's just the most humble, you know, superstar you've ever met, used to work at a gas station, and he could carry car batteries with one hand. So next time you pick up a car battery, he could palm a car battery
Making me choke over here.
and carry it across the lot. So, congratulations, Big Slimmy, on the College Football Hall of Fame, and
We
thanks
gotta get him
everybody.
on this. He always, when he
I
was
know
on
we
y'all's
do.
radio show all the time, he was really good. We gotta get him on here.
Yeah, it's time. It's
Yeah.
time. In fact, stay tuned because
Yeah.
the Flagship podcast interviews come out on Mondays, and we always try to bring you the best of the best. And thanks to everybody for listening to this episode of the Flagship podcast. Until next time, for Taylor Estes, I am Chip Brown. We'll see you over at Horns 24/7. Take advantage of that 50% off deal and a chance for monthly subscribers to upgrade to annual. That's a rare special that you got to take advantage of, so you get all the VIP content on all the team sites on the preeminent 24/7 sports network. So until next time, for Taylor Estes, I'm Chip Brown. Stay safe and keep the faith.